Deputy Speaker, and I'd also like to thank the previous speakers. Excellent speech from my colleague on leasehold issues, my colleague from Ellesmere Port and Neston. As ever, he's such an expert because he has such a problem in his area, but I know that is not unique, and we have some of the same areas in London in flatted developments. And I'd also like to thank my colleague from Mitcham and Morden for the excellent work she's been doing on this important issue and for bringing this debate today. And I'm not sure if it's a relief or not to be discussing something other than Brexit, but it is as much, if not more, of a crisis, and certainly for those that are affected. Now, in my maiden speech, I referred to my forebearers who recognised the importance of good quality housing for people's well-being, lives, and I have to say their productivity in their factory, and my forebearers built good quality, affordable housing until the state took on that responsibility, and from the 40s onwards, governments of all persuasions, both persuasions, built tens of thousands of council homes a year to ensure that British people were adequately were housed. But we have been walking away from that in the last 10 or more years. For most of my political life, I was a councillor in Hounslow, and even in outer London, until about 10 years ago, a family on an ordinary income could afford to buy their own home, so they weren't needing social rented housing. They didn't put additional pressure on the housing, on council housing. But since housing prices have increased, you need a household income of 72,000 in Hounslow to buy even a two-bedroom flat, and yet the average household income is 40,000. We need 1.2 million new council and social rented homes in this country, because that is the numbers of households on the housing needs register, and that doesn't count the people who are not disabled, who are working age adults, who are having to rent. The numbers of people in that category renting has gone up 100% in just over 10 years. The right to buy crisis, the right to buy has meant that most councils are, even those building housing, like Hounslow's building about 400 new council homes a year, but the right to buys mean they're losing them faster than they're building new council homes. And of course, the right to buy homes are often becoming private rented at 3 times the council rent levels. Now, of course, we need house builders to be on our side, and as others have mentioned today and said so eloquently, they need to address this leasehold issue. They need to take also responsibility for the shocking faults in many new build properties. There is a variety between developers, and they cannot hide behind the fact that there is a skill shortage, but there is a skill shortage, and they need to take responsibility for it. But so does the government, because much of the skill shortage in construction is as a result of the large proportion of our construction workforce are EU nationals, and many of them are leaving or are no longer coming in the same numbers because of the uncertainty that has been mentioned many times in this chamber. They do not feel welcome. They don't have security as workers in this country. Now, I'm sure that the Minister is going to respond with warm and hopeful words, as ever they do, and the new government may even have an intention of doing something significant about the housing crisis, though I suspect they won't be around long enough to actually implement anything. But I can advise them not to fall into the problems of some of the previous ministers, the risks of unintended consequences of poorly thought out policies. I'll just cover 2 of them. Let's have no more schemes that just give discounts to those who could afford to buy anyway, such as the Help to Buy scheme. And let's not rush through planning changes, such as the permitted rights one, which has built the appalling chicken coops in old factories and offices that my honourable friend from Mitcham and Morden mentioned earlier.